We'll start off that in May, Ms. Story filed a complaint regarding an auction by Marlo Schmidt, who is or was at the time, still is a licensed auctioneer. The complaint, the gist of the complaint was that Mr. Schmidt failed to properly sell the homes that she consigned. There were 2 homes. Also that Mr. Schmidt sold some of her property under what she considered a reasonable value. One of the homes was actually purchased by Mr. Schmidt from this story prior to the auction.
Okay. And then he's been sold in his own auction.
Correct.
And who was the high bidder?
The high bidder at that time, if I can refer to my notes, I recall it was a relative of his nephew, Richard Schmidt.
Okay. And was the sale completed?
No, the sale was not completed.
Do you have any indication why it was not completed?
Because he backed out of the, Mr. Richard Schmidt backed out of the sale. Allegedly, there was an agreement between him and another relative that the other relative was going to actually buy the house. And when all that fell apart, because as I understand it, the other relative bought another house at that auction.
So, in your knowledge, ever paid for that house?
Yes, she was. I mean, Mr. Schmidt bought the house initially prior to the auction for $25,000. He then paid for an additional $17,500 to make up what would have been, as I understand it, the difference between what the winning bid would be.
Okay. So,
Miss Story, raise your right hand. Okay, and do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, before we begin, spell your name for the court reporter.
I am Betty Jo Stewart.
you have a seat.
And first of all, may I thank each of you for your time. Time is valuable, and I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you. Now, I would like for y'all to know that when I entered into this, I was preparing to go to a retirement center. I'm way up in my 80s. It's time for me to, if RE/MAX would release these 2 houses, could he put them in the auction? I said, yes, but RE/MAX said, don't release those houses. He said, if they will release them, can I put them? And I said, well, sure. RE/MAX did release them for me because they knew I wanted them into the auction. And then he asked me one day, he said, is it all right if we bring another house into the auction? I said, well, yeah, that will be more publicity for the auction, for the houses. I did not realize it was his house. His house sold at the auction. A friend of mine thought he was buying my house. He bought Mr. Smith's house. I said, well, I'm telling you, I never had any idea that I could get hurt. I never had any idea that all the china, 14-place setting of Noritake china, beautiful. And all my Ethan Allen furniture, everything, I could not get money from. I would show him items, a mirror over my fireplace. I said, now, I've got to have a certain amount of money for this mirror up there. I can't let it just go for peanuts. He said, how much do you have to have? And I said, well, at least $300. The mirror is very valuable. And then I showed him a wet bar, an Ethan Allen wet bar. I said, this has been appraised for $1,299. I showed him, I took one of my chests of silver down, set it on my dining table, and I said, now Marlo, I have the other chest just like this chest. It's a 16-place setting of sterling silver that has been appraised for $10,000. He said, how much have you got to have for it? I said, well, Marlo, I'd like to get at least $5,000 for it. Then I showed him an antique saddle. I said, this saddle has been appraised for $10,000. He said, how much do you have to have? I said, just like the silver, I would like to get at least $5,000 for this A-Fork saddle. It was rode in Lonesome Dove. If any of you men have seen Lonesome Dove, it's an A-Fork. One of them. But I didn't realize that what I was pointing out to him, that I had to have it in writing, reserved. I made sure he understood the items that I had to have a certain amount of money for. But I wasn't smart enough to put it in writing. And he was smart enough to not say, let's put this in writing, Betty.
Ms. Story, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Did you did sign a contract with Mr. Schmidt?
I did sign a contract with him.
Did he claim the consignment on movable items on your collectibles was 40%?
No, to me, yes, it said in the contract that it would be 40%. But I did not realize that the things I was pointing out to him would not be reserved and me be able to bring my sterling silver back home with me, the A-Fork saddle, and some of the items that I showed him. I have to do that.
Okay, so but you bought some items, or I believe the response from Mr. Schmidt says you bought certain items at your own auction. Did you pay a commission and buyer's premium on those auctions?
I didn't realize I was until on Wednesday after the auction on Saturday. He not only charged me for a wonderful gift that I gave to him. I mean, he charged me for that. It was a black pot-bellied stove. He charged me for the gift to him. I not only I paid a 10% buyer's fee also. I have the paperwork with me today. I might look smart to some of you, but I'm not smart. I'm a very dumb country cotton-picking mother and grandmother. And I'm not as smart as y'all are, but I wish I was. I wish I had this to do all over again. But I'm just, it's like a nightmare. It's like someone ringing your doorbell and saying your son has just been killed in a car wreck. It's just a nightmare.
For example, on the saddle that you are talking about, which I showed that there were two saddles, one of which I believe you purchased back, is that
Right.
correct? And the price was $200, and the commission was $80 that you were charged for that. Is that correct?
No, whatever that says, whatever it says, it's correct.
At the end of this proceeding, did you receive a bill from Mr. Schmidt?
Yes, I did. He came to my house on Wednesday after the auction on Saturday evening. He started my auction in the evening after everybody else's goods were auctioned off. And I said, well, Marlo, how'd I do? This was in my empty house. He said, you didn't. I said, come on, Marlo, how'd I do? How'd I come out? He said, you didn't. I said, Marlo, quit joking with me. How much money did I come out with? And he said, you owe me. I said, Marlo, how could that happen? I said, what happened? He said, expenses eat it up. I pay my help well. I thought, well, Marlo, it's not my problem that you overpaid your help. I tell you, ladies, in my 83 years, I've never gone through anything like this. A wedding, having a baby, or speaking at my husband's funeral service. I have never gone through anything like this.
All right, Ms. Story, with regard to the two houses, Can you tell the board, first, let's talk about the Robert Street house. What happened with that? You sold that house to Mr. Schmidt before the auction?
I said, Marlo, the Canterbury house in Alexandria says if I'll come on in November, they won't charge me a deposit. So, he wanted to upfront me $25,000. And he told me 3 times, you gotta trust me. I thought, well, yeah, I do trust you. And he upfronted me $25,000, and Remax is still, they are still wanting to choke me to death. But then when I got to Canterbury House, I had taken a love seat, a bed, and a few pieces, and 3 nights. So I said to the Canterbury House, I've got to go back home. He said, why? And I said, I don't have any money to live here. And he said, what happened to your auction? I said, I didn't get a nickel. I said, how much do I owe the Canterbury House for 3 nights? He said, $1,500. I said, oh, $1,500 for 3 nights here after my auction? Lord, what are you trying to tell me? I wrote him a check for $1,500, and I said, I will not stop payment on it. But why? I don't understand it. I just don't understand.
Now, Mr. Schmidt give you money after the auction for that Robert Street house?
Yes, he did. He guaranteed me a sale for 209 Broad Street for 706 or whatever it is, 701. And I told him, I said, that house brings me in $650 every month. $1,650 is not chicken feed. That's good money for a widow. And I knew that the Robert Street was taken care of, but I expected Broad Street to be taken care of. I had nothing to put back into Broad Street. He had given me his word that he was guaranteeing a sale for both houses for me to go to Canterbury and live.
And are you still residing at the Broad Street house?
I am. My son has given me some furniture. I have gathered furniture from here and there, the Goodwill, a couple of friends. So I have my house furnished back, and my house looks just as beautiful as it did the day they walked in. Now, I had a paper, and I would signal him by, that meant no.
Have you all discussed having signals ahead of time?
Yes, yes.
So when you discussed having the signals with him ahead of time, did he explain to you that he was going to sell it to you and you would charge?
No. I had no idea. And,
I have 2 documents here with regard to, he's talking about what was sold and when it was sold. One of these is you as the buyer. Okay, this, I'm going to ask you to look at this document. Is this document your bill from him?
this is my bill from him, and the last bill says that I owe him $201.11.
Okay, that's your bill. And the second document, this is your consignor settlement documents, is that correct?
This is correct.
Right, at the end of that, it shows how much was to be paid to you on the movable property only, is that correct?
I don't understand.
I'm sorry, the items, not the houses, but just the.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was to receive 60%. He was to receive 40% plus a 10% buyer's fee.
And you were charged on the items you purchased.
I'd just like to mention that my wife was there on each account, and we meet Betty's story after. And after the first visit, first or second visit, it could have been the second visit, I told my wife, Cindy, I says, you know, I don't think we should do this auction. I just don't feel like we should do it. And so I made an appointment with Betty's story, told her we wanted to come see her. And it was around noon one day. Don't remember the exact date, but I was supposed to find the documents of some sort to go back and find that date. But we went there with the full intention of telling her we were not interested in doing the auction. My wife ended up being there before me, and she sat down and visited with Betty and had told her kind of what our intention was, that we really didn't care to do the auction, I guess. By the time I got there, Betty had informed Cindy that she wanted to do this auction. She didn't care if she come.
Mr.
Yes.
Schmidt, I have a,
Betty's story had told us she may come up with no money at the end, but she would at least have her stuff, her merchandise out of the house, and she could go to assisted living, correct?
Yes.
I mean, that's leading, you know, you're just leading her, you're telling her what you want her to say. And I'm gonna object to that.
she is, I think, she is correct. And I know that you being an attorney, I don't feel that it's my role to object this hearing also, but she is correct. So instead of, asking her, she said this to us, correct? You were going to say, what did Ms. Story say? That would be a non-leading question.
Reservations about doing the auction, that's what you talked with Mrs. Story, is that correct? And why was that?
Did you answer?
You said yes.
Yes.
Can Remax.
Well, I shook his head.
Will I have a chance to rebuttal?
So if you'll give them a chance to answer this.
Ask the question.
Okay. So the answer to that question was yes.
Mr. Howell,
Is that correct?
not you.
Correct?
Yes.
And why did you have some reservations about going forward with the auction?
Because I felt like the value of what was there was not enough to justify an auction.
Now, on the real estate, unbeknownst to you, you say that your nephew bid and the hammer fell on his price. Is your nephew very familiar with law, auction law?
I don't think so.
I'm going to say, I'm not going to say about that, but I'm going to tell you something before you leave. The law states when you cry that auction at Gallo Falls, it's sold and he must close. He must give you a check for whatever your terms and conditions was in that auction that day. And I understand that your family and I understand we're buying here. However, you have a fiduciary agreement with your son. He should have closed that property regardless of who he went to try to hold it off. Because otherwise, this board could think something else. Maybe it was your knowledge, maybe it wasn't your knowledge. However, you have got a pretty legal predicament. You're in yourself, you've got this board.
Do you have any questions, or is this something you want to say?
I'm fixing to ask you,
Okay.
why didn't he pursue legal action against your nephew?
I guess the answer to that question is he is my nephew.
Okay,
And I paid the
I
difference.
understand. Why did not both pieces of property sell? One of them had $600 worth of income on it, and one thought, he like it should have sold.
That's the one that's
All
sold.
right, what about the other one? Why did it sell? Is it still on the market?
I don't believe Betty has it on the market.
That's all I have.
I have one other question. When you said sold, when the gavel went down, your nephew was obligated actually to put a percentage down on the property. Did he do that?
Never did.
He never did.
There are other bidders, I'm not asking a question. Where is, or who owns the Robert Street properties then?
Southwest Auction Realty LLC.
All right, and have you received the income on that property since the sale?
No. Not all.
Where are the where is some of the rental going?
Up to February, Miss Betty's story collected. Well,
Okay.
income.
All right, but after that, you have.
After that, the Southwest auction goes to the LLC.
And is that property for sale?
Not active.
Oh,
We would entertain any buyers.
Any further questions for the board? If there's no further questions for the board, Ms. Dowd, do you want to make a closing statement?
I believe that the board is well aware of what the situation is. Again, the charges were either deceit or gross neglect. I would leave to the board's discretion to make a decision as to which, but I think there's some issues here, obviously, where Southwest Auction should have conducted the sale and the conclusion of it in a different manner.
Do you want to make a closing statement, Mr. Schmidt?
I just want to thank everyone for coming and, sorry, have to take up your time. This is something I never ever thought I would ever be in front of the auctioneer board. Sorry to say, that it's come to this, and as far as an auctioneer, I feel like I did nothing wrong. I feel like I did not try to deceive, defraud anybody. I had no intent of ever doing that. Don't have any intent of ever doing that to anybody. That's what I feel. Thank you.
That concludes the hearing.
I'm just going to tell you how I feel. I am not going to find you guilty on that particular issue, but I feel that you have an obligation to advise Ms. Betty that she could have put a limit or reserve on some of these items. I think she did, particularly the rule of her age and the fact that she was in her 80s. And I think that the amount that you charged her, 50%, was usurious for an auctioneer. I'm just going to tell you. And I think that as a matter of principle, that you should try to settle this matter with Ms. Betty amicably among citizens that live in the same community. I think you should do that, and I think she should try to work with you to get this thing settled, so that you can put it aside, because y'all live in a DeWitt, right? Very small community. And you have a professional reputation to uphold. By the same token, she's in her 80s. I think you offer her $1,300, I think that's a little low, and I think that you could probably settle that for some more money and get this thing settled. And I think you have a moral obligation to do that, and also an obligation as a professional to do it.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of finding Marlo Schmidt in violation of section 3121A4 of the Louisiana Auctioneer's Licensing Statute, say aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
Okay, the noes have it. After voting, let the record reflect that the board did not find Marlo Schmidt in violation of section 3121A4 of the Louisiana Auctioneer's Licensing Statute. Next, we're going to vote on, can I have a motion on whether to vote to find whether Marlo Schmidt is in violation of section 3121A5, which is incompetency or gross negligence of the Louisiana Auctioneer's Licensing Statute? Is there a second? Any discussion?
For the same reasons that I didn't find him in violation of the other, but morally, I think that he had an obligation to explain to her what her rights were before she signed the contract. That will form my part of the discussion.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call, any further discussion? I'm going to call for a vote on whether the board is going to find Mr. Marlo Schmidt in violation of section 3121A5 of the Louisiana Auctioneer's Licensing Statute. All those in favor say aye, all those opposed say no.
No.
Okay, after voting, let the record reflect that the board members have voted no on finding Mr. Marlo Schmidt in violation of section 3121A5 of the Louisiana Auctioneer's Licensing Statute. That concludes the meeting.
Try to settle that, right? You have an obligation to do it. Well, she should listen to you, you should try to settle
Yes,
it.
I think this one's
Then
going
you have to go out in the hall.
This one's gonna be very short.
Settle the
Then
home,
where's Mr.
and you'll have two happy people.
Who?
Mr. Phipps should be outside.
Okay.
That way we have to go to Phipps. Should try to do it. Because she's in her age, she needs that time, and you got professional reputation.
Thank y'all.
Miss Betty, he's gonna talk to you out in the hall. We'll try to get this thing settled for you. Okay? Before you go home, we'll try to get it settled.
Oh, James wants to talk to me.
Yeah, you can go in the hall and try to
I
settle
got
it.
a bottle of water back here. I just don't know how long it's gonna have to get settled.